The rain poured harder than either of them had imagined. Fat drops splattered against the windshield, blurring the road ahead as the wipers fought desperately to clear a path. Emily Parker tightened her grip on the steering wheel, eyes squinting through the streaks of water. Beside her, her 17-year-old stepson Ethan sat with his headphones around his neck, watching the gray world roll by. They were driving home after visiting Emily's sister in a nearby town. What was supposed to be a simple 3-hour trip back had turned into a battle against the storm. The sky was a dark, restless gray, and thunder rolled across the hills like distant drums. The road, once dry and familiar, now shimmered under sheets of water. Emily tried to stay calm. She had driven through bad weather before, but this storm felt heavier, almost personal. Then, without warning, the car sputtered once. Then again, her heart skipped. "Come on, not now," she muttered, tapping the gas lightly. Ethan looked up, concern crossing his face. "What's happening?" Before she could answer, the car gave one last pitiful groan and coasted to a stop on the side of the road. The engine went silent. For a few seconds, the only sound was the relentless drumming of rain on metal. Emily tried the key again. Nothing. The engine didn't even turn over. "Great," Ethan said under his breath, leaning back in his seat with a sigh. "Now what?" Emily exhaled slowly, trying to keep her tone steady. "Now, we call for help." She pulled out her phone, but of course, barely one bar of service. She held it up, turned it this way and that, hoping for a miracle. After several attempts and a few muttered prayers, she finally reached a towing service. The voice on the other end told her it would take at least an hour, maybe more, for a truck to reach them. They waited. Time stretched endlessly in that rain-soaked car. The windows fogged, and the storm outside only grew angrier. By the time the tow truck's headlights cut through the darkness, night had already fallen. The driver worked quickly, checking under the hood before shaking his head. The car wouldn't be fixed tonight, or tomorrow. It would need to go into the shop. Repairs could take days. Emily looked at Ethan, both of them soaked and tired, the wind biting at their faces. "Looks like we'll have to stay somewhere nearby," she said. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You mean like a hotel?" "Unless you want to sleep in the car," she replied with a faint smile. "A warm bed sounds a lot better, don't you think?" He smirked. "Fair point." They followed the mechanic's directions to a small roadside inn a few miles away. The neon sign flickered in the rain. Vacancy. It wasn't much to look at. Just a 2-story building with faded paint and a vending machine humming near the entrance. But it was dry and safe. Inside, the lobby smelled faintly of coffee and old carpet. Emily checked them in and asked for a double room. "2 beds, please," she said, glancing at Ethan. "We'll need the space." Their room was simple, a pair of floral bedspreads, a small TV, and the low hum of an air conditioner that seemed older than both of them. But to Emily, it felt like a small haven after the chaos of the road. She dropped her bags and looked at Ethan. He seemed restless, shoulders tense, eyes darting around the unfamiliar space. The rain outside was still pounding against the window. Trying to lighten the mood, Emily said, "How about we order some pizza?" "My treat," that got his attention. For the first time all evening, Ethan smiled. "You're serious?" "I'm serious," she laughed. "We've earned it." An hour later, they sat cross-legged on one of the beds, sharing a greasy box of pepperoni pizza and watching reruns of old sitcoms. For the first time in months, laughter filled the room, real, easy laughter. Emily realized how long it had been since she had seen Ethan smile like that. The next morning, the storm hadn't eased. It poured even harder, and the world outside looked washed out and distant. With nowhere to go, they decided to stay in. Emily used the quiet morning as a chance to talk. She asked Ethan about school, about his friends, about the notebook he was always scribbling in but never shared. At first he was hesitant, answering with short phrases. But as the hours passed, something softened in his voice. He began to open up. He talked about his father, Emily's late husband, and how much he still missed him. He admitted that after the funeral, people had stopped asking how he felt, as if grief had an expiration date. I feel like everyone's moved on, he said quietly. But I haven't, and I don't know how to. Emily's heart ached. She had seen the distance in him, the walls he had built. She reached across the table and said gently, Ethan, grief doesn't have a timeline. It's not about forgetting. It's about learning to live with what you've lost and not letting it crush you. He looked at her, eyes glassy. And what if I can't? Then you lean on the people who love you, she said softly. You don't have to carry it alone. Those words hung in the air. Neither spoke for a long time, but something unspoken shifted between them. The rest of the day passed quietly, but comfortably. They played cards, watched a movie, and even ventured down to the tiny hotel gym just to do something. Emily noticed how much more relaxed Ethan seemed, how the heaviness in his posture seemed to lift bit by bit. By the second night, the storm outside had finally begun to fade. The rain softened to a drizzle, and the clouds began to break apart. Still, the car wasn't ready. Emily didn't mind. For the first time in months, she felt like she and Ethan were finding each other again. Not as a stepmother and stepson trying to coexist, but as two people learning to understand one another. That night, after dinner, Ethan pulled out his notebook. I've been writing something new, he said almost shyly. Do you want to hear it? Emily smiled. Of course I do. He hesitated, then began to read. His words painted a picture of storms, how they felt endless when you were inside them. But how? When they finally passed, the world felt cleaner, clearer, almost renewed. His voice wavered at first, but soon it steadied. Each word carried a quiet strength. When he finished, Emily's eyes were wet. That's beautiful, Ethan, she said softly. And you're right. Storms don't last forever. He smiled, a small, genuine smile that reached his eyes. The next morning, the sun finally broke through the clouds. When they got the call that the car was ready, they packed their bags and checked out of the hotel. The world outside smelled fresh and new, washed clean by the rain. The drive home was calm this time. No thunder, no fear, just the steady hum of the tires on the open road. Emily glanced at Ethan, who was watching the passing fields quietly. He caught her looking and said with a faint grin, You know, I don't think I hated being stuck there. Emily laughed softly. Me neither. As their house came into view, she realized that what had started as a broken car and an inconvenient storm had turned into something she hadn't expected. A bridge between them. A moment of healing, hidden inside a night of chaos. Sometimes, she thought, life doesn't go according to plan. Sometimes it leaves you stranded in the middle of a storm, just to remind you of what really matters. And as the rain finally stopped for good, Emily knew that the bond they had rediscovered would last far longer than any storm ever could.